Saved by the bell. Go back to plan A. Yay. First crisis averted. Okay, so we're ready? All right, good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the ITalk meeting for September 10th to order. It's 9:31 a.m. And before we get started, I'd like to ask our interpreter to walk through how to access our interpretation services for today's meeting. Please proceed.
Good morning, announcement from interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon, World, and select English as your language. If you're joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on Mute Original Audio to not hear the original Spanish logo in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you're in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Buenos días, aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, globo terráqueo, y seleccione español, Spanish. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Gracias. Thank you.
All right, now I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge. Ready? Okay, now I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land we call home. The tribal nations of San Diego region was historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systematic oppression. We pay our respects to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States. From our cultural groups, the Kumeyaay, the Degüeño, the Luiseño, the Gupeño, and the Cahuilla. This land has nourished, healed, and protected and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from the indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Now, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and face the flag. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag and States to the republic in which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and yeah. So I will now ask our clerk to confirm that we have a quorum with a roll call for attendance. Clerk, please confirm.
Thank you, Chair. We do have a quorum this morning. Miriam Babaki. Here. Frank Rivera.
Present.
Lorraine Alquist. Oh, sorry. I can't see very well. Lorraine is absent this morning. Jacqueline Appleton Dean.
Here.
Sunny House.
Here.
David Santa-Steven.
Present.
And that does complete the roll call. We do have a quorum.
All right. Thank you, Clerk. Well, welcome to September 10th Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee meeting. I'd like to thank staff for their efforts to pull this meeting together. And a thank you to everyone on the phone and web for taking time to join us today. Let's quickly talk about how this meeting will work. We will take in-person public comments, followed by virtual public comments. If you are a member of the public here in the room, please submit a speaker slip to the clerk. For those virtual, please continue to raise your virtual hands at the right time. I want to make sure everyone knows that public participation is possible in person and via Zoom as well. Sounds good? All right, great. then let's get started. We'll start with our first item, public comments, communications, member comments. Clerk, are there any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. We do not have any public comments.
All right, thank you. Are there any member comments? Nope, hearing none. So then I'll ask Robin to give us her presentation from the SANDAG.
Good morning, Mario Orso, our CEO, is unfortunately stuck in traffic. That back to school commute we're still all getting used to, but he will be here very shortly. In the near term, I did want to go ahead and share his update with you all today. First, welcome back. Hopefully everyone had a restful August break, although it feels like we were just here, but hopefully we all did get somewhat of a break. During August, though, we were very pleased to be able to host the California Transportation Commission here in our new SANDAG boardroom. As many of you probably know, the California Transportation Commission really is the entity tasked at the state level with overseeing much of the transportation funding that we get from the state. And so it's really important that we're able to enforce and reinforce that relationship with them. And so they had a great trip. It was a great opportunity for us to highlight all of the work that we were doing here at SANDAG on behalf of the region, and we were really pleased to be able to welcome them. Back in July, before the August break, the board did approve the FY 2026 goals for the CEO. And we just wanted to make sure that ITALK was aware of what those are and what we're all working towards as an agency. We're really making sure that we're taking the time to align ourselves around very defined goals, objectives, and metrics over the next year so we can hold ourselves accountable to those. So the 6 goals that the board approved for the CEO, and therefore we're considering those our agency goals, were 1, focus on fundamentals, 2, leadership and structure, 3, oversight and transparency, 4, to deliver on our mandates, 5, fiscal responsibility, and 6, collaboration. So really it's building off of the goals that we had from FY 25, but continuing to underscore the importance of our partnership, our transparency, our communication, and that back to basics ethos that you've been hearing Mario talk about a lot. A major component of that was the creation of our new internal controls director position. We're very happy to have Shanae had joined us maybe a month ago, 2 months now. I can't remember how long it's been, but she's been very hard at work making sure that we are strengthening our relationship with the Office of the Independent Performance Auditor, really getting a good handle on all of the audits and corrective actions that we've committed ourselves to over the past few years. I know we're going to be talking about TransNet performance audits later on in today's agenda. And so she's been really very much focused on developing a new audit tracker that we will be able to house internally to make sure that we actually know everything that we've committed to. We're tracking what's happening as it relates to each of those, and more importantly, that we can report out to the relevant authorities and the public on the work that we're doing. And that tracker is not going to only track the TransNet audits, but all audits, OIPA and otherwise. We're also focusing on some central themes to improve our internal controls. One of those is creating a central document repository. So one of the challenges that we face in almost all of our audits is the challenge in being able to locate files. We've grown very fast as an agency, and then we haven't taken the time really to organize ourselves internally to make sure that we can find everything that we need to when we're looking back to see how did we make the decisions that we made. So that's going to be one of our top focuses. Another area that we're working very closely with Shanae on is our internal policies and procedures. So we have now created a new team within the administration department called our Internal Policy and Communications team. They're going to be very focused on actually standing up a program around our agency policies so that we have a structure around how often are we reviewing these, what are the policies that we need, are there any gaps, is there any redundancies, how do these correlate to our board policies, and how do we make sure that we're maintaining them on a regular basis. And then also, almost just as importantly, is how are we communicating these to staff and providing the trainings that we need so everyone actually understands the rules of the game, and then we can all be playing it together. So the third leg of that stool really is a training program. We're working very closely with our learning and development team to establish a formal training program for calendar year 2026. And thinking about how do we actually budget for that as well as part of the FY 27 budget. We've committed to a lot of things for our audits, and now we need to make sure that we have the resources allotted within our budget to actually do all of that work. So that's going to be some right sizing that we'll be having conversations with you, the audit committee, and the board about over the next year. Also during August, we released our draft environmental impact report for the regional plans. That's a huge milestone for us. It's currently open for public feedback through October 13th at 5 p.m. So we want to encourage everyone who's listening to please participate in the process by providing any comments that you might have on the draft EIR. On September 26th, we're going to be providing an update to our board on any changes that we're proposing to make between the draft regional plan and the final regional plan. And then we're planning to bring the final regional plan to the board this December for their consideration for approval. A couple other updates just to close us out. We were recently awarded the TDM Excellence Award for an MPO from ACT. I wanted to see how many acronyms I could get in there. TDM is Transportation Demand Management. We are the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and ACT is actually the Association for Commuter Transportation, which is a national TDM association. So it's a great honor for us to get that award. And I just want to congratulate all the staff that were a part of our TDM efforts here at SANDAG. And then lastly, just a final reminder that we are still looking to fill positions both on this committee, ITALK, and our audit committee. It's really important work that we're doing on these two committees to provide oversight and transparency over SANDAG's activities. So please, we just want to encourage anyone who might know someone who's interested, help us get the word out so we can get those applications in and the positions filled. I'm happy to answer any questions there may be.
Thank you, Robin. Any questions from any of our members? Jacqueline?
One question. Sorry, I missed the goals. Where are they? I know you said you presented them to the board. So what meeting was that?
It was in July. Maybe we can go ahead and just send the one pager that we had with all the goals,
Perfect.
objectives. Mhm.
Thanks so much.
Yep.
Any other, Miriam? No? Oh,
Just to what Jackie said, yes, that this goal sounded very interesting. So yeah, it would be great to have a copy of that.
We'll definitely do that.
all right. Well, thank you, Robin. Great presentation. All right. So now I'd like, is Les Hopper able to join us? Okay, great. So Les Hopper was one of our members for many, many years, and I had the pleasure to work with Les on a lot of projects. And so Les, I know you're attending virtually. Like to see if any of our members would like to say any words for Les. No. Start Sunny. Go ahead, Sunny.
Hi, Les. We can't see you, but we know you're there. Thank you for your service on the iTalk. I know it was very difficult for you. Oh, there you are. There you are.
See you now. Thank you.
So I've enjoyed working with you. I probably have worked with you the longest on iTalk. Appreciate your service. I know you were dedicated and you were trying to make a lot of the meetings, but you had other personal commitments. So we appreciate your service, and I hope everything goes well for you, and you'll be hard to be replaced. Thank you so much.
Next, Miriam.
Yes, Les, again, my time with you was much shorter than Sunny, but at the same time, I really, really want to thank you for all the input that you provided. Every time you wanted to talk, you say, oh, well, let's gonna say something very interesting and insightful was gonna come out of it. And I really want to thank you for the time you put in and all the contributions that you made. You'll be missed. Thank you so much.
Yes, and once again, Les, appreciate working with you, collaborating with you on projects in Chula Vista, and that had a lot of regional importance. We, like any project, you come across challenges, and we're able to find solutions that work. I really am indebted to you and learning a lot on the projects that I worked with you. So with that, do you have any words for us? Words of wisdom.
I don't know about wisdom, but I do want to say thank you. Some of you, I think I've known almost my entire career. So, you know, even going back to Caltrans and work with the local agencies. And as Sunny said, we've shared this committee role together. So when I first started on iTalk, I could not believe how much information and important work is going on at SANDAG. It was just overwhelming, you know, and it took a while to grow into that. And so I'm so appreciative of the work that the committee's doing, the iTalk committee, and our people on SANDAG that are helping out, Vanessa and Michelle and Susan. It's just been a pleasure working with all of you. And I just say, I'm sorry, I would have loved to do a couple more years, but yeah, life has gotten in the way this year. So I appreciate the kind words and the understanding, but great committee, great group doing really important work. And I just say thanks again to all and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Les. Great hearing from you and seeing you virtually at least. And we wish you well. And you know where we're at the second Wednesday of every month.
I sure do. Thanks, Mario.
Thank you. And with that, I'd like to announce that we do have the ITALK member position for a licensed engineer with appropriate credentials in the field of transportation project design or construction, that's open. And this is obviously to fill Les Hopper's vacancy. The deadline to submit is September 27th, Saturday, and you can contact SANDAG staff through email or look at the website at the ITALK website. So with
I'm
that,
working on that for you, Mario. I might have someone.
Thank you, Les. We appreciate your help as always.
All righty.
All right, and thank you. So with that, then we'll move on to the consent agenda. We've got items 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3 that require action. Is there any members on the consent goes through items 3.9. So do we have any members that want to have questions or want to pull any item for discussion? Sunny.
Chair, I do have a question on item 3.9. So if we can pull that.
Okay. Is there any other item?
3.2.
3.2, Jacqueline pulls 3.2. Any other comments? Any other reports? With that, okay, so then I'll offer the consent agenda except for items 3.2 and 3.9, which have been pulled. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve.
Okay, so that's Sunny. Is there a second?
Second.
Miriam. Okay, all right, so.
Real quick, Chair, do you want to take public comments before you?
Oh, yes,
do the
are there
vote
any?
On any consent items?
Excuse me, yes. I know. Are there any public comments on any of the items right now, with the exception of items 3.2 and 3.9, which have been pulled?
Thank you, Chair. We have no public comments.
All right, seeing that there are no public comments, then I think we're ready for the vote. Then can we have, we've already got that.
She's going to call.
So call the roll, please, for the vote.
Thank you. Biology Environmental is absent. For CEO Private Sector, Sunny House.
Approved.
For Contractor Construction, Jacqueline Appleton Dean.
Approved.
For Finance and Budgeting, Miriam Babaki.
Yes.
For Licensed Civil Traffic Engineer, Frank Rivera.
Yes.
Licensed Engineer is currently vacant. And for Real Estate Right-of-Way Acquisition, David Santasteven.
Approved.
That motion does pass unanimously with those members present.
All right, thank you. So now let's go with the first item that was pulled, 3.2, the TransNet Triennial Performance Audit Completion Recommendations. Jacqueline.
Yes, there was actually 3 items under this one item. So it's really just item 12 from the 2024.
Okay, so we have SANDAG staff.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, you got it?
What's the
Okay.
question?
I just think the justification is confusing
Okay.
and could be rewritten. I'm kind of getting that you didn't address the 2021 regional plan.
So what was determined is that we're now working on the 2025 regional plan. So it really doesn't behoove staff at this point to go back to the 2021 regional plan and go through that entire exercise.
Correct.
We have gone through it internally just to kind of take a look at it, but we did do it for the 2025 plan. So what we are asking is that we consider, we looked at the 2021 but because that's
The past.
we're pretty much past the 21, we're just going to move forward with the 2025 going forward.
Right. So I guess what I'm asking is, can we just write that?
Yes.
The first paragraph, I feel like, I don't know. It just was confusing to me. I just think we should say up front that we're past the 2021, but we will in the future,
Okay, with that,
accommodate this.
with that, do you want to see that come back to ITALK, or would you just like staff to update that and approve it at this time?
No, just in the next grouping, just put it in there.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments from any other member? Do we have any, clerk, are there any public comments on this item, 3.2?
There are no public comments.
Okay. And so with no other member comments or public comments, if no further comments, is there a motion to approve this item 3.2?
Is that for approval?
It's for approval.
Okay.
Second. Made the motion?
Jacqueline,
So what are we approving? Just the first two?
the 3.2.
Just 3.2.
Just item 3.2. The action is to approve the 3 new transit
I think
triennial
Amberlynn
funds
wanted-
audit forms.
If I could maybe suggest that I think the request was for one of the items within 3.2 or one of the approvals within 3.2 to come back at a later date. So perhaps I could suggest that a motion might be to approve item 3.2 with the exception of request number 12.
Okay. All right, so yes, I move to approve item 3.2 with the exception of item 12, TPA year 2024.
Okay, so Jacqueline made the motion, and is that Mr. San Steven made the second?
Second.
All right, so we've got a motion made and a second. Any other questions? If not, call the clerk for the roll call.
Thank you. Biology Environmental is absent. For CEO Private Sector, Sunny House.
Approved.
For Contractor Construction, Jacqueline Appleton Dean.
Approve.
For Finance Budgeting, Miriam Babaki.
Yes.
For Licensed Civil Traffic Engineer, Chair Rivera.
Yes.
Licensed Engineer is currently vacant. For Real Estate Right-of-Way Acquisition, David Santa Steven.
Approved.
And that motion passes unanimously with those members present.
Okay, so now we'll go to the other item that was pulled, item 3.9, TransNet Grant Programs Biennial Status Update. And that was Vice Chair. Sunny, do you have a question on that one? Well, do you have any public comments?
We do not have any public comments.
Okay, seeing no public comments, Vice Chair?
Hi, Goldie. Couple of questions. The Carlsbad amendment request. I know it went to the Transportation Committee. Could you update us on what the results were on that amendment?
Yeah, I can tell you.
Oh, okay.
Basically, the Carlsbad DC is recommending almost the same thing as I talk to approve it with the condition that if they don't perform, the money comes back.
Okay.
And you know, Carlsbad will come back to the board and see if that's amenable to the board, the recommendations, and if they can also meet that commitment.
Okay. And when is it going to the board?
September
have-
27th.
27. Got
27.
it.
Oh,
Okay.
Goldie, sorry, I didn't see you.
We're very far away.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for the update, Mario. The second question I have is regarding fact that they were non-responsive in getting information to you. What happens in a case like that? Do you consider past performance when it comes to the next round? And, you know, I mean, they're getting money from us. They should be responsive. So what do you guys do?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ali Vasquez and
Hi, Ali.
Hi, good to see you again.
Thank you.
I run the Specialized Transportation Grant Program, and FACT is a recipient of those funds, and they've gotten the senior mini grant with us. So when it comes to these invoicing issues, what we do is document it. We have many meetings with them to try and figure out how to address it. And there is a past performance metric embedded in the senior mini grant competitive process. So this could impact them for future funding.
And are they aware of that? That they
Yes.
could lose the funding or not be selected next time?
Yes, they are aware of that. It did impact them during the last cycle.
Okay.
for these type of issues.
Okay.
Yes.
So what measures are they taking, if any, to try to fix this?
So we've sent them a memo to address these issues and even a new invoice template that could perhaps be easier to help prevent some of these
Okay.
issues. And they're currently working to input all of their expenses on this invoice template that was meant to help address a lot of these issues.
Well, thank you all for doing what you're doing to make sure that they respond. It's really their responsibility to
Correct.
do this, but thank you for taking the effort. So,
Yes, and we will continue to have these conversations as they were also recipients for cycle 13 and our other funding sources as well. So we would like to address this and work to collaboratively with other teams that FACT gets funding from.
okay. Thank you, Ally.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And this is an informational item. So are there any other questions? No? If not, okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Goldie. And with that, we'll go to the report, item number 4. Clerk, are there any public comments on the TransNet Smart Growth Incentive Program Cycle 6 funding recommendations?
We do not have any public comments.
Okay. Do we have any member comments?
Staff has a presentation, if you'd like to take that first.
Okay. Go ahead.
Great, thank you so much. Good morning, Vice Chair Rivera and Vice Chair House. My name is Goldie Herbon. I'm on the SANDAG Grants Distribution Team. I'm also the Program Manager for the TransNet Smart Growth Incentive Program. And today I present to you the Cycle 6 funding recommendation. The ITALC is asked to review the proposed projects recommended for funding to ensure consistency with the TransNet ordinance and consider a recommendation to the Board of Directors for approval. The Smart Growth Incentive Program is a competitive grant program. It's funded through the TransNet Extension Ordinance. Those eligible to receive Smart Growth funding include local jurisdictions in the County of San Diego. Smart Growth Incentive Program funds support public infrastructure and planning projects that facilitate compact, mixed-use, transit-oriented development that increases housing and transportation choices. SANDAG staff has implemented 5 cycles of smart growth funding to date. The first one was in 2009 for cycle 1, where we released $9 million. And the latest cycle was cycle 5 in 2022. And then we released $2 million. You can see all the other cycles in the bar chart on the left indicating how much money we released for each cycle. And then the pie chart on the right demonstrates how much investment the Smart Growth program has awarded to date, which is just under 60 million. You can see a majority of funds has supported capital construction projects. The Smart Growth Incentive Program has funded over 70 planning and construction projects. Those projects have also been able to leverage an additional $47 million, representing a total investment of $100 million to the region for smart growth activities. The images on this PowerPoint showcase notable projects from the cities of San Marcos, Lemon Grove, Chula Vista, and the city of San Diego. And examples of projects include enhanced downtown streetscapes, city plaza beautification projects, safe street designs, enhancing pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, transit-oriented development studies, and specific plans. So now I want to shift gears into the Cycle 6 call for projects. So staff is proposing to release $45 million in funding, the largest Smart Growth Incentive Program cycle released to date. The pie chart on your left shows the proposed allocated amounts of funding for the 3 project category types. So for this cycle, we allowed 3 project types to be funded: capital, planning, and climate action planning projects. The table on the right shows the minimum and maximum amount thresholds for each project request, along with a performance period for each project type. In summary, planning projects are required to be completed within 36 months, and capital projects are required to be completed within 3.5 years or 42 months. This slide showcases a Cycle 6 timeline. The Board of Directors approved the call for projects and release on December 13th, 2024. SANDAG staff subsequently released the call for projects on January 6th, 2025, initiating a 90-day application window. Shortly after that, SANDAG staff completed an applicant webinar. Those are interested in applying for funds through the cycle. We also invited local jurisdictions for a technical one-on-one session to discuss their project and determine best fit for our program. 11 local jurisdictions took us up on that offer, so we had one-on-one meetings with those folks. The application deadline closed on April 11th, 2025, and thereafter evaluation panels were gathered for each project category. Projects were scored. Each scorebook was QA/QC'd by data analysts at SANDAG. And now we have the scoring and rankings and a recommendation before ITalk today. And we're also asking for an eligibility review. This is a regional map on the slide here. This project showcases, or this photo showcases the recommended project locations. There are 35 project applications recommended for award. There's a project legend on the left side of the slide here, so you can see the recommended capital projects with indicated by the orange waypoints. The green waypoints indicate climate action plans that are recommended for funding. And finally, the purple waypoints show the planning projects that are recommended for funding. So in the next 3 slides, I'm going to present to you each project category and the recommended projects for each. So I'm going to start out with the climate action planning projects. There were 7 applicants who submitted funding from 7 different agencies. I want to call out the City of Solana Beach's project. Although that is led by the City of Solana Beach, that is a regional greenhouse gas inventory project. They have 7 project partners: Chula Vista, Carlsbad, Encinitas, Escondido, La Mesa, Oceanside, and the County of San Diego. In total, 14 jurisdictions are recommended to receive climate action planning grant dollars for Cycle 6 funding. The table here just breaks down the 7 applicants, the titles of their projects, and the requested award amounts. If you want more details on each of these projects, you can reference attachment 3 of this item. There's project descriptions in the application index, which I believe is the first page of attachment 3. As mentioned on the previous slide, we allocated $3 million for this category, but it was undersubscribed. Applicants asked for just under $2 million. Any surplus funding from this category was moved to the capital category as that was oversubscribed. And I'll speak to that in a couple of slides. So now I'm going to move on to the planning project category. We received 16 project applications. 1 project was rescinded because they received state funding. So 15 projects were evaluated. 15 projects are recommended for funding. This funding will go to 10 local jurisdictions. These 15 projects requested $9.2 million. $12 million, as a reminder, was allocated for this category. So there was a surplus of $2.7 million that again is moved to the capital category. Note, there's an asterisk next to the City of Escondido's planning project because today we're seeking ITalk's guidance on eligibility for this particular project, and I'll speak to that in a couple of slides. So moving on to our last and most competitive project category, which is capital. We received 23 applications. They requested just under $67 million. That's more than 2-fold of what was available, the 30 million. And as a result of our scoring and evaluation process, we are recommending 13 projects to be funded, 12 are recommended to be fully funded, and 1 is requested to be partially funded, and that's the County of San Diego's Poinsettia Avenue Active Transportation Improvement Project. They originally asked for just over 2 million. We're recommending 1.3 million, as you can see on the table. So for this cycle, we are recommending $33.7 million in Smart Growth Incentive Program grant awards be recommended for capital projects. And so the last topic I want to present to you today is the eligibility review being requested of ITalk. As stated earlier, there's 1 planning project that necessitates ITalk's consideration. It's the City of Escondido's Affordable Housing Trust Fund project. This project will establish a trust fund that will deliver affordable housing in Central Escondido, targeting specifically low to middle income households. The project would create a trust fund program and the procedures to distribute those trust fund dollars. There's a public outreach and engagement component of this project that would be implemented. We are recommending that this project receives $315,000, which was their grant request. While the project application describes how they will expand housing options in their communities, this application does not specifically mention any transit-related infrastructure improvements that will be made. So on this slide, we have up section C.3 of the TransNet extension ordinance, which describes the Smart Growth Incentive Program. SANDAG staff is asking ITALK to determine whether the City of Escondido's Affordable Housing Trust Fund project is eligible under the TransNet Extension Ordinance. We have Escondido staffer Veronica Morones here to answer any project-specific questions if you have them. And before I open up the floor for discussion, I just want to close with the next steps for the call for projects. So for the month of October, I'll be going on a roadshow with the recommendations to the policy advisory committees. I am scheduled to go to RPC on October 3rd, followed by the Transportation Committee on October 17th. And then a week after that, October 24th, this is slated to go to the board for approval, the smart growth funding recommendations. We anticipate pending board approval, we anticipate a grant agreement execution after that, and that NTPs would be issued in early 2026. So from the NTP date, grantees will be expected to complete their projects within 36 to 42 months. Again, if it's a planning project, it's 3 years. If it's a construction project, it has to be completed in 3.5 years. And that concludes my presentation. If you want to know more information about SANDAG grant programs, visit sandag.org/funding/grant programs. My direct email is on here if you want to contact me directly. And then the grants distribution team email is also here if you have questions on other programs. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you, Goldie. Goldie, first of all, clerk, are there any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. We do have one public comment. Stephen Manganiello, you can go ahead.
Hey, thank you so much. This is Steve Manganiello. I'm Public Works Director with City of National City. My comment is related to the process for recommending projects for award, not the evaluation itself, but this idea that once the projects were scored and ranked, that any project that received a score of 50 would qualify for funding, and that a city could not be considered to have their second project funded until they went through all the other list of cities. I have a big issue with that. Just looking at the results, they were not included as part of the presentation you just saw. But for example, the City of National City, we submitted, I believe it was 4 capital projects. 3 of our 4 projects were scored in the top 5, and only 1 of them received funding. So for example, we have a project, 16th and 18th Street Community Corridors, that received a score of 87.80, and it did not receive funding, whereas the city of Del Mar had a project with a score of 75.80, received full funding. The TransNet ordinance is very specific that the Smart Growth Incentive Program award funding based on a quote competitive process. In my opinion, there's nothing competitive about funding projects that scored lower above projects that scored higher, simply to give every agency an opportunity to receive money. If that was SANDAG's intent, they should have dispensed with the grant process and just taken their pool of SANDAG Smart Growth Incentive Program funds and just equally distributed it to every agency, similar to the way they do it with our local roads funding based on population and roadway miles. I strongly oppose and have concerns with how the recommendations are being made to fund projects that scored lower over projects that scored higher. This committee is charged with interpreting the TransNet ordinance, which calls for a competitive process. In my opinion, this is certainly not a competitive process based on funding projects that scored lower above projects that scored higher. That's my comment. Thank you.
Mr. Manganiello, so your concern is only on the capital projects? I just want to be clear. Yes.
Sorry, just a moment. I'll have to
Okay.
give him access to speak again.
Okay.
It appeared there is sufficient funding in the other two categories to fund all projects that qualified, so my concern is with the capital projects, correct?
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate your
Thank you.
comments. Okay, so that, Gold,
Can I-
if you'd like to respond to that, please?
Yeah, so for those in the room, if you look at attachment 3, please look on the last page. That's the scoring or the rankings of the capital construction projects. So ahead of the release for call for projects, we had robust stakeholder outreach from both local jurisdiction staff, working groups, and electeds about the process in which we evaluate projects. There was expressed need for geographic distribution, which was presented and approved by the board. Geographic distribution is defined as follows. Each project will be recommended to receive funding in descending total application score order until all applicants with applications receiving scores 50 points or higher have received funding for at least one project. So while we understand the comments that were made, this was requested at the behest of stakeholders and local jurisdictions to equitably distribute smart growth dollars.
Where is that listed, or was that in the application, or?
It was in the call for projects, the
Okay.
guidelines. Sunny, are you talking about the geographic distribution?
Yes.
Yes. And we also discussed it in workshops in the applicant webinar. This was expressed multiple times. It's given at presentations as well ahead of getting our call for projects approved. We also made special notice to describe the geographic distribution.
So let's say National City got their project or got one project. So they're kind of out of the pool until you go through all the regions. Is that
Correct.
what you're saying?
Correct. So we go down the whole list and everybody has an opportunity to vie for the funding. And then if there are surplus funding afterward, then we go back to the top of the list and then
Okay.
score from there. But
So really
obviously,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, and obviously funds got expended before we could get back to the top of the list. National City wasn't the only one in this situation. We had other jurisdictions also not receive funding for their second project.
Okay. So even though they scored higher than the next project
Yeah.
from another jurisdiction, because of that, I would say, is that a mandate or some kind of a desire to distribute geographically? They will not be eligible until you come back around to the top and go, okay, if we have any more money, then we'll do the next distribution. Is that how it works?
Correct.
Okay.
Goldie, so then when the geographic distribution was that, you mentioned earlier in your presentation, was that an action that the board of directors also approved the geographic distribution for this grant program?
Correct.
So it's part of their action.
Yes.
Miriam.
Actually, I think, Steve, good to hear from you. I used to work with Steve in National City, so and he's as diligent as ever in submitting and getting great grant projects. But I think the point that perhaps Steve is making is that there's a certain language in the ordinance that has it to be competitive, and then some language outside of that amends it to become a geographical distribution. And I don't know how that is supposed to work. Is that we are, I think our job is to stay with the language of the ordinance. How can it be modified afterwards? And how that's legally possible to do that?
Well, I would say that you are correct that the ordinance does reference that it should be a competitive process, but the board via the ITALK and the other PACs sets the parameters of what that competitive process looks like. And in this instance, part of the call for project included this element around the geographic distribution as part of the competitive process.
So are you saying that ITALK at some point also reviewed this requirement?
Yes, the call for projects typically comes through the ITALK for its feedback, keeping in mind that when this process occurred, it was probably 2 years ago, if I had to guess. But the calls for projects do come up through the ITALK and through the committees before they go to the board for
I
recommendation.
remember that. We did receive the application, but this additional requirement of geographic distribution was really never mentioned. I'm just wondering, when was that mandated by the board or approved, or did ITALK have a chance to review that? It might be much later, or earlier, but I don't know. I don't remember it during my term, so that's why I'm wondering.
I don't know if Goldie has those dates. We can certainly go back through.
Yeah,
the
where
record
did
and
this
pull that.
come from all of a sudden?
I don't have the dates of the ITALK meeting, but I can go back and send them back.
This
you all.
particular issue with the geographic distribution to be included in the application, could you let us know its origin, and did ITALK ever have a chance to review that? It might be something that the board came up with, but I don't know if it was run by ITALK or approved or not, so.
I'll have to get back to you on that because I just
Thank
don't
you.
know.
Susan, do you have any recollection?
I don't remember the date.
Okay. Yeah, and let's try to get the board action
Absolutely.
itself, because at the end, if it was a board action.
Was this in the last cycle also?
No.
It's been years since we done this.
Oh,
Big distribution.
Right.
It's the first time.
it's the first time. Okay, so it wasn't in the last cycle. Somehow between the last cycle and this cycle, this geographic distribution requirement got into the application. Okay, so then that would have been during my term, and I don't remember that. So, okay,
I'll get that information to you.
thank you.
And I have a follow-up question to
Good,
that.
Miriam.
And that is that something that modifiable? This geographic distribution, maybe it was for the last cycle and has been instituted. Does that mean that it needs to continue that way? So it probably, if it was an amendment or a policy decision regarding the, regarding the ordinance language, maybe it's something that can be reviewed again for future cycles?
Yeah. Jenny, correct me if I'm wrong here, but yes, this is modifiable. If that's not the direction that stakeholders or working groups that apply for this funding don't want next time around as a result of what happened this time, it's open to discussion. But I will say there's probably argument on both sides of the coin.
And I think it's a good idea to argue that. I mean, I can see also from a equitable distribution that, the areas would like to have access to these funds. But then I can also see, that the makeup of a city like a national city that really lends itself to smart growth projects, and maybe that city can get really utilize it more efficiently. So yeah, there are arguments on both sides of it, and maybe it's a good time for us to revisit that.
Absolutely. And then I will say national city projects did score really well. They rose to the top. And if we didn't have geographic list distribution, they would have received 14 million out of the $30 million of the pot. And you could see where we would have different public comments in that situation. So we're taking the comments from stakeholders, those that are experienced in applying and understanding the challenges that are in their way to secure funding for their infrastructure projects, but they're smaller communities and they don't compete as well because they don't have either the expertise or human resources to fully complete a comprehensive project. So anyway, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. So
Okay.
Yeah, I understand your comments on there, but I think, yes, and the point that is made, I think, is from the regional perspective is, there's benefits for geographic distribution, but also I think the public is looking for the projects that are highest quality for the program to be funded, because that's showing where the greatest need is. So I do have some concerns regarding geographic distribution, because it does tend to kind of, swing away from projects that are probably very deserving. My hope is that the unsuccessfully funded projects for National City, that they're of such good quality that there's probably other funding programs out there from the state or the federal government that they can get some funding on there, so the projects aren't shelved until the next cycle, and that there's opportunities for National City to work on getting additional funding. But those are my concerns with the geographic distribution. But I understand how it was included in part of the packet, which was open to everyone to look at. And with the workshops that you had, fair warning was given. I think it's just now we see the results of it, and we're maybe a little shocked by what has happened.
And Sunny, I just want to jump in here. And when ITalk reviewed the call for projects, that was on November 13th, 2024, and the geographical distribution was part of the call for projects at that time.
Yeah, I understand that, but if it was a change, it never was brought up in your reporting. I think that would have been important for us to know that somehow this slipped in there. My
And it
concern,
was actually, we do have it on a slide 13, changes for the call for projects process. It's the fourth bullet on that slide, so that might indicate.
what does it say?
It says geographic funding distribution. So there are 4 bullets on that slide that talk about the changes for the call for projects process.
Okay.
More detailed scoring rubrics, encouraged evaluator consensus, use average scores and geographic funding distribution.
Okay.
That was on slide 13. So that would lead
Okay.
me to think that we did discuss it.
So bad on us that we missed it. But my concern is, as oversight, we want to make sure that the intent of the ordinance language is being implemented. So to me, geographic distribution is political influence, trying to change the language, board wanting to get everything. I'm just being open about it. So to me, that we don't have any say or any stake in who gets the funding. But if you go through all this process and you create this scoring and they score high, but they don't get the project because of the geographic distribution, then to me, that's very unfair. And I agree with Frank as far as the project is benefiting the community. So if National City is really gung-ho about smart growth and is doing all they can to make that happen, they deserve to get funding, whether it is through this grant or some other way to maybe get assistance to make that happen. So I don't know if we're really meeting the intent of the language of competitiveness. And I do say, I must commend you for all these spreadsheets that you guys have come up with to make this happen. This is a very complicated process. I also want to thank the judges, the panel that reviewed this. This was a lot of work. And to be able to do this, this is all done as volunteers, I assume, right? So please thank all the panel members for what they've done. Thank you, staff, for making these things happen. It's very organized. It's really complicated, but I'm an engineer. Spreadsheets are my thing. So I think this is great that you guys have done that to make sense of all of this. But then this kind of taints it when we have something like this come in and a city that's put a lot of work and effort is unhappy with that. But I also understand the other side of the coin with the fact that other cities are entitled, or not entitled, but at least they deserve to have a chance at these grant money as well. So.
But, and I'd like to make a add on to that is, since I think with the region that we had so many great projects that were submitted, that this is why it's very important for all the grantees who are receiving funds. There's still a process to go through before they get the authorization to proceed. But if you're not going to deliver on your projects, there are other quality projects out there that missed out on the funding. So I think that's really the concern, because what we saw last time that went on for much longer than it should have. We really need to be aware of the needs in the community. And so, I just think that we need to, as a grantee, you need to be aware of the deadlines and make sure that your project can be delivered as you promised in your application. Mr. Sansteven.
Well, what if there was a minimum score? So like 12 out of 15. So Delmar, I think, scored 9 and 10. So they're awarded. And their ranking was pretty low.
So applicants, there's a total award. There's award. Each applicant could score up to 100 points. And the minimum point threshold to even be eligible for funding is 50 points. And so for the future, it might be a consideration to increase that number. And then you start back at the list, right? Because you're increasing the threshold for quality projects. It's just an idea.
All right, Jacqueline?
Another question kind of relating to Frank's concerns is in this application, was there anything that asked the applicants if these projects were tied to another project or to other funding or something that would stand in the way of them delivering the piece that they're getting the money from SANDAG for?
In the budget, we do ask if there are other funding sources. We don't ask the pointed question, is this project tied to another infrastructure
'Cause I
planning or
know that that's kind of
predicated
what
on another
happened.
project?
But, and also to our committee, I think this is opportunity for the next cycles to be aware of, because I would be all on board for, for something that says, oh, we want to give points to geographical area, but then how it shakes out is a different story. So when you see the outcome, it's like, oh, shoot, that didn't work out so well. So, and I agree with you, Sunny, that no matter how you do it, there's going to be pushback, but maybe we can find a better way. But I think it's opportunity for the next grants that come out for us to kind of look closer and ask these questions.
Yes.
So anyways.
Yeah, and I really in the process, I want to commend Steve to bring this up.
Yes.
It's easy to just take it and leave, but I think it's really important that we hear from these local agencies and how, when after all this is all shakes out, what are we ending up with? And is that really equitable and correct? So I want to thank you for bringing this up and another opportunity for all of us to take a look at the process and what these decisions really mean, because we saw that obviously, but we missed what it really, what the consequence of that is. So, yeah.
Okay, so, and we still have another part to our report is the City of Escondido's request. So Goldie, do you have a presentation for us on that one? I'd like to hear more about that project.
Oh, no, it was coupled with this on the last few sides, but do you want me to?
Yes,
Go.
I'd like to hear more about I guess on the transportation side, the benefits or what that project is proposing.
Yeah, absolutely. Veronica, do you want to come up here also? In case so this is an affordable housing trust fund project. It was recommended for funding on the planning side of the cycle, 6 call for projects. And the project essentially creates a trust fund to expand affordable housing in central Escondido. However, the project itself does not, per the ordinance language, does not mention transportation related infrastructure improvements. So that's why we're bringing it before you. It's as indicated in the application, more of a housing project than it is a transportation project, which is why we're asking for your consideration on eligibility here.
Then I've got a question on that. Then how was it that the applicant was able to be accepted and then have the committee review it?
It passed the initial eligibility screening criteria. So there's high level go, no go criteria that they passed, right? It is going to enhance or increase housing choices. It is related to transit oriented development planning for the city of Escondido. So we went ahead and went through the scoring process, but we wanted to bring the eligibility issue here before you today.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Vice Chair.
Goldie, that was one of my original questions. The report was very detailed about all the spreadsheets and everything, but I couldn't find the qualitative criteria. I saw A and B and stuff like that.
Okay.
Could we have that as well? Because that would have been good to have and understand. That was my question as well, same as Chair, Rivera. How did they even get through if there were no transportation improvements listed, unless I'm mistaken? Is there any transportation related stuff in there?
There is, I can let Veronica speak to her application if.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. My name is Veronica Morones. I'm the city planner with the city of Escondido. The application before you, the request is for a planning project that would create and establish an in lieu fee for an affordable housing trust fund, as well as create the adopting ordinance governing that trust fund and how the city would expend dollars that go into that trust fund. It is specifically targeted to a geographic region within the city. In our urban downtown, we have a recently adopted specific plan as part of our 6-cycle housing element, where we have allocated a significant portion of our density. And so the Affordable Housing Trust Fund seeks to retain that density within a transit priority area, within proximity, close proximity of the Escondido Transit Center, where the Sprinter line and bus lines are, as well as within the geographic area of a next-gen rapid bus line that is planned in the draft RTP that is forthcoming. So while the request itself does not explicitly plan for specific improvements, infrastructure improvements related to transportation, it does seek to retain density of affordable units within a geographic area where there is a specific amount of high-quality transit planned through regional and local endeavors, as well as existing transit.
So a question then, the subject area is within the smart growth area that the grant requires?
I have to check the map, but I believe it is.
Okay. Then secondly, and maybe this is more for Escondido, the schedule to create the in lieu fee and go through the trust fund program development and having an ordinance adopted. When does that start, or has it started already based on the getting a notice to proceed from SANDAG? What is the time constraints and the risks with that?
Thank you for that question, and very reasonable given our past Smart Growth Incentive Program planning grant. So understand where that question is coming from. So currently the project has not been kicked off. It is dependent on this funding award. If we are not awarded this funding, the project will continue to sit until we can identify funding and look for other sources for such funding. But with that said, we at the City of Escondido did receive a voter-approved ballot initiative for a tax revenue increase last November. And as a part of that initial phase of funding that the city anticipates coming through that tax increase is bringing on additional staff. So one of our limitations in our last Smart Growth Incentive Program award for a planning project was the fact that the city was really struggling with staffing capacity and resourcing, and we had significant turnover during that portion of time. Since then, we have actually hired 3 new full-time planners, 2 of which are long-range specialized planners who would be tasked with this project. So we would have adequate resourcing for staffing in-house, not reliant on a consultant team to manage the project and kick the project off immediately. We would be going out for an RFP if awarded this project for a consultant to support in the development of the in lieu fee itself. And that would be managed by the long range planning section, which now has 3 full-time staff members. We anticipate 36 months being ample time to develop the in lieu fee through an empirical study, go out into our community for outreach and engagement to find out how they would see awarding and structuring of funding for affordable housing within the EVSP, East Valley Specific Plan Area, consulting with other interested parties, organized interested parties as well, and then drafting the ordinance and the program and getting that to our decision makers.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Miriam.
How specifically is this trust fund is created an access to transportation? These projects are supposed to be transportation related. So a trust fund for housing has to, within the ordinance language, we are supposed to also be awarding transportation projects. How specifically are you tying the language so that it is actually transportation related and smart growth related, smart growth transportation related?
Great question. So in our application, there is a question that explicitly asks about what transportation related infrastructure is proposed. And in our application, we say none. we explicitly state that this is a planning project related to affordable housing within a transit priority area that is in a smart growth opportunity area adjacent to existing and future planned transit opportunities where it would create equity allowances by retaining units within our high density areas and expressly restrict them for affordability levels as a result. So the city had transparently put that in our application. And by meeting the needs of the sustainable community strategy, by providing fair access to safe mobility options for future folks benefiting from affordable housing within that specific area.
Okay, Vice
Okay,
Chair?
so this 315,000 plus the 66 that you have, what's the other source of fund?
The matching funds are provided from staff time managing the project. There is no other matching funds.
What do you
beyond
mean
that.
staff time? How does that?
So that would be the cost of city staff to manage the project.
Okay, but that shows matching funds. So, so city will spend 66,000 to match or to basically get the project done. Is that what you're saying?
Through staff costs, yes.
Okay. So it's really not matching funds. It's city's investment basically through staff. I understand. Now, this 381, how far does that get you to even say, okay, we're at a point now we can do something? So how far does that get you? How was that estimated?
So we anticipate that amount to cover the cost of the entire project's creation so that at the end of the grant period, we would have a program in effect that now all development within that specific geographic area is subject to. So ideally, at the end of that grant period, a developer comes in, they trigger the in lieu fee, they're paying the in lieu fee, it's going into the trust fund that exists and is now accumulating funds for award.
So this is in what area of Escondido is this? Is this, you said downtown?
This is our East Valley specific plan area. So if
Okay.
you're familiar with downtown
I live in
Escondido.
Escondido, so.
Oh, great. So you'll know the former Palmer Hospital site where they
Yeah.
recently redeveloped. It's right on the eastern side of that, extends down the East Valley Parkway corridor to the Ash, roughly the Ash intersection.
Okay.
And then is bounded by the Creek Channel as well as portions of Grand and Second.
But your program has to go through some kind of a public outreach and basically get approved. And so there's no guarantee that even if you spend this money, you really can establish this because there's a lot of other criteria or other, interests that would be speaking up or identifying concerns and things like that. Is that correct?
Technically, because it is an establishment of an in lieu fee and
Yeah.
ordinance adoption, it would ultimately be subject to the decision
Okay.
of our city council.
Okay. I think it was very novel of you to do this because it's out of the box thinking. But it's very interesting dilemma. Okay.
Okay, and I'd like to have our members look at the attachment that includes the planning projects evaluation workbook. Because you can see the project titles from the different agencies that submitted. There's some safe routes to transit, mixed use overlay. It's the, let me see, go back. It's a planning attachment 3, planning project evaluation workshop. And so just, there's a variety of, it's not necessarily infrastructure, it's planning. Remember, this is the planning side of it. And so there's land use work that's being proposed by the different agencies. So I can see how this one, although it seems somewhat of an outlier, it does fit the sort of the goals of the planning side of it. And so I think for us, the role is to make that determination if this is a project that we want to have included with the findings that the SANDAG staff has put before us.
And I want to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Miriam.
I'm reading that language again and
Yes.
again, and I love the planning process that the city of Escondido is proposing, but I'm having a hard time putting a housing effort within what this is clearly is talking about, transportation related infrastructure improvement. Talking about, it's all about enhancement of streets and public places in funding of infrastructure needs to support development. So it's all about investing in infrastructure to support the development and not the development itself. So, so I'm having a hard time, not to diminish, take away from the value of the project that you're proposing, but I'm having a hard time connecting the two.
Connecting that project with the
With the
grant
language
program
of,
that we have,
with the ordinance language,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm kind of in the same boat, so that's why I'm trying to figure out, when you talk about a transit-oriented area, can you describe a little bit what are, besides buses, what's out there that you feel this is a transit-oriented development?
Yes, so within walkability is the downtown Escondido Transit Center where the Sprinter terminus is located, along with numerous bus routes. The next gen rapid transit bus line that is identified within the draft 2025 RTP is located directly down East Valley Parkway. So that would connect the Nordal, I believe, the Nordal area in San Marcos all the way to the grade at Valley Center. And so in addition, this area sits directly adjacent the downtown specific planning area, which is the city's Grand Avenue retail corridor. It's where City Hall is. You have Grape Day Park with recreational amenities, the Center for the Arts. So it is a core pedestrian multimodal area that we are trying to facilitate. It is where we have identified the majority of our regional housing need for the sixth cycle. That is why the East Valley Specific Plan was adopted and created. And so the idea being that instead of losing those units from that urban core where we want to promote density for walkability, for multi-modes of transit, we capture them through this mechanism, thus facilitating further ridership opportunities and alternative transit opportunities by retaining those units and those future folks in that area.
So that's how you justify a transportation-related infrastructure improvement. Even though you're not improving the infrastructure, you're relating the existing infrastructure of transportation to your program, your project.
Correct. And the synergy between the need for people to have ridership in that area.
Okay. One last question. Goldie, if this is not approved, what happens to that 315,000?
We would consider moving surplus funds to the capital category, and the county of San Diego would probably be
Get a little
made
bit
more
more money.
whole.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay,
so-
thank you.
So a comment I have, and then for our two members who have raised questions on this, let me rephrase it this way. If the city of Escondido was coming in for a separate project, but already had this ordinance and this document approved, using those as the background for the justification to come in with another project, then you would say it's gone through the process, they've established that in lieu fee, and now they're looking to get Smart Growth Incentive Program funds for whatever project they see fit. Is that kind of, maybe this is like the cart before the horse?
Yeah.
Okay, Jacqueline?
I mean, I haven't said anything because it's being said right now, so why be redundant? But yeah, it's kind of what I said before. I feel like there's something that has to happen before we get to the transportation part of this project. So I think this is one step, but I feel like there's other steps that need to be done as well. So I'm just not sure how it fits in to the grant.
Okay, and I see that one of our members had a leave for another appointment, 10:45 a.m. Santa Stephen. So now with our members that remain, do we have enough information to be able to formulate a motion? If not,
I'll make
Go
that
ahead, Connie.
motion. I think this is a little bit too premature, and sticking with the language of the ordinance, it seems, I think it's a novel idea, and I really commend you for actually thinking of that, because we shouldn't be just thinking about only transportation. You're trying to create a better, I guess, transit-oriented development. But because it's in the early stage and you have not established in Luffy, I don't think, I will not vote for this project. I basically make a motion to reject this application.
Okay, and so with that motion, if it's rejected, then that would mean that the county of San Diego to get these $315,000 as they
Yeah.
reach that cut.
Yeah, since we're not approving that anyway, it'll just go back to the pot.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so is there a second on that motion?
I second.
Okay, so motion made by House, seconded by Appleton Dean. I think we're ready to vote.
Thank you. For biology and, I'm sorry, biology environmental is absent. For CEO private sector, Sunny House.
Approved.
For contractor construction, Jacqueline Appleton Dean.
Approved.
For finance and budgeting, Mariam Babaki.
Yes.
For licensed civil traffic engineer, Chair Rivera.
Approved.
Licensed engineer is currently vacant and real estate right-of-way acquisition is absent. That motion does pass with those members present.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody. That concludes.
And I want to just, can I just
Yes,
address
go
the
ahead.
city of Escondido? Again, thank you for your novel approach. It in no way diminishes where you're headed and what you want to do. Our job here is to make sure that the funds are going to where they are intended. And maybe with some modification, we can come back and help you, create this project and move forward with it. But please be reminded that it doesn't take away from what you're trying to do at all.
We appreciate that.
Well
and
said.
Would like to just close with, we were encouraged by SANDAG staff to submit this application. So I'll leave with that.
So-
Thank you.
We hope to
You can
see you
try
again.
Try again with the modifications suggested.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being here. All right, so with that, then we'll go with item number 5. And this is the TransNet FY 18, 21, and 24 triennial performance audit recommendations. Clerk, are there any comments on item 5.1?
Chair, could we take the public comments after the presentation rather than before? We do state on the agenda that they have until the end of the presentation to raise their hand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning, Chair Rivera and ITALK members. My name is Vanessa Leon, and I'm joined today by Saba. We're pleased to present the latest update on our quarterly report for the TransNet Triennial Performance Audit, or TPA for short, which we currently bring to the ITALK quarterly. This report highlights our agency's progress in implementing recommendations from fiscal year 2018, 2021, and 2024 TPAs. So some key highlights: as of May 14, 2025, staff has completed all 18 recommendations from the fiscal year 2015 TPAs. Previously, quarterly reports include a cumulative total of 110 recommendations. Going forward, recommendations will only be included from the TPAs that are still have items marked as in progress. Based on this updated approach, the revised total number of recommendations is 92. Of the 92 audit recommendations generated from the prior 3 TPAs, 62 have been fully implemented, with 30 are still in progress. In other words, staff has completed 67% of the recommendations. For historic context, these audits are performed every 3 years by an independent auditor, which assesses areas such as project delivery, cost control, and schedule adherence to provide recommendations that can improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the TransNet program. For this update, we have included 3 attachments. In attachment 1, it's the progress with the updated charts. Attachment 2 is the in-progress recommendations with an updated matrix. And attachment 3 is the recommendations that have been recently completed this past quarter. I will now provide a brief update on the progress made for each year for these past 3 audits. In fiscal year 2018, The performance audit provided 26 recommendations with up to 5 subcategories each, totaling 42 items. The fiscal 2018 TPA has 33 recommendations completed with 9 still remaining. Moving on with fiscal 2021, the TPA included 26 recommendations with 15 of them have been completed. And for fiscal 2024, our latest audit, we have 24 recommendations and staff has completed 14 of this so far and the rest are still in progress. This past quarter, staff has completed 1 additional recommendation shown in attachment 3. As the ITALK is aware, to help streamline the close-up process, staff has started submitting completion forms as standalone items for the ITALK's review and approval as soon as TPA recommendations are completed or fulfilled. As part of this effort, completion forms for 3 recommendations were brought in today in item 3 in today's agenda. And these recommendations will be reflected as complete in the next quarterly update, but as I noticed today, we're gonna have one of them be brought up next month. This summarizes the overall accomplishments of the last 3 audits, and we continue to address any outstanding recommendations. Staff's current focus is to complete any recommendations from the 2018 and focus any critical ones from fiscal 2024. Staff will continue to maintain quarterly updates on the progress of implementation for these audit recommendations with the next quarterly report bringing back to the ITALK in November 2025. This concludes our presentation and staff is available both in person and online to answer any questions the ITALK might have. Thank you.
Okay, so clerk, do we have any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. We do not have any public comments.
Okay, no comments. Do we have any member comments? Vice Chair.
Okay, I'm a little confused. It says staff is seeking ITALK's concurrence in closing out the 2018 recommendations.
So just to clarify, this is the first part of the item.
Okay, so
The
you have
next
more
part
to
of the
come?
item will be that, yes.
Thank you.
This item's for info.
No comment on the first one.
Right. So seeing none, this item's for information. Okay, so now, thank you, Vanessa and Saba. Now we have item 5.2, 2018 Triennial Performance Audit Recommendations, Performance Monitoring, presented by Grace Mino, Jennifer Williamson, and Susan Huntington. Go ahead with the presentation for item number 5.2.
Oh, here, yeah. Good morning, ITALK Chair and ITALK Committee members. My name is Grace Mino. I'm your Senior Director of Data Science and Business Information and Technology Services. I'm pleased to be joined by
Jennifer Williamson, Deputy Director of Mobility Planning here at SANDAG.
And I'm Susan Huntington. I'm SANDAG's Director of Financial Planning, Budgets and Grants.
So just for our newer members, we want to provide a quick introduction, background on the 2018 TransNet performance audit recommendations, the status, which Vanessa and Saba has gone over at a high level. We're going to do a deeper dive, and then we want to go over some discussion and possible action items towards the end of our presentation. In the attachment of 5.1, you'll see 9 recommendations remain in progress from the 2018 TransNet performance audit. And of the 9, 8 of these are related to performance monitoring, and 1 is related to financial capacity to complete the projects in the Major Corridors program. The recommendations are very broad, complex, and we do want to highlight that in the last 7 years, a lot of staffing, resources, hours, and subcommittee time have been devoted in trying to address these audit recommendations. So here is a 2018 TransNet Triennial Performance Audit. It is also on the SANDAG website. I also brought a hard copy with me just to remember and refresh my memory on everything that's been completed and recommended. And so of the recommendations, I do want to highlight that 20 have been completed so far that were related to performance. And of those, 28 were specifically related to performance monitoring. So 20 of the 28 were completed already. And then another high level overview, again, over the last 7 years, this is just a high level summary of all the work and staffing and resources that have been done and major milestones that were completed within each calendar year to help address the recommendations that were in the audit report. And so I'm not going to go into detail for each of these, but just I do want to highlight that there were subcommittees formed in 2021 to help with this, and also in 2022. And so again, a lot of staff time, resources, and efforts to help address and close out the last remaining audits. And so I will now pass it to Susan to do our deep dive in the ones that are still in progress.
So item number 3 from the 2018 performance audit is the one item that's not related to performance monitoring. This is the one that's related to financial capacity. So the TransNet Plan of Finance provides an annual update on how SANDAG can meet both its debt service obligations and future funding needs. So the Plan of Finance shows whether SANDAG can continue to pay its current debt, evaluates the potential issuance of new debt, and analyzes how much funding is required to complete all the projects remaining in the TransNet extension program. Unlike the 10-year review report, which we completed in 2018 and intend to complete again in 2028, which looks back at projects and programs implemented in the expenditure plan, the Plan of Finance is a forward-looking model. It's developed by our outside financial consultant. So the 10-year review is a major undertaking, like I said, that we do every 10 years. And while SANDAG runs its Plan of Finance annually, in the past few years, we did not present these updates to the board because we were at a borrowing capacity limit. We weren't going to be going and doing additional bonding, so we didn't bring that financial assessment to the board. We do continue to conduct our annual analysis to ensure we can meet our debt service commitments and fund near-term projects through the PAYGO model. In May 2025, staff began discussions with the board about funding shortfalls in the Major Corridor Program, signaling a need for decisions regarding the expenditure plan. Staff is currently conducting a project prioritization process scheduled for discussion with the board this fall. And the broader TransNet expenditure plan will be reviewed following adoption of the 2025 regional plan. So to complete this recommendation, staff will bring forward the capacity analysis that we brought to the board at their retreat in May of this year, and we'll be bringing that to ITalk in the fall. And so we expect to complete this recommendation by the end of this year. And then I'll turn it back to Grace.
So of the 2018 TPAs that are related to performance, item number 5A was a broad category. And I do want to highlight that we had a consultant, Kimberly Horn, do the Transportation Performance Management Framework project. A report is published in 2021. We had the consultant do a deep dive on all of the recommendations, all the previous audits that were conducted, and also provide recommendations on how we can address these audit recommendations. And I want to point out that Kimberly Horn said that since SANDAG already complies with so many external targets given by the state and the feds, they didn't have any further recommendation for us to address number 5, to create new targets for this. And so I just want to highlight that. And so this is why this one still remains in progress, given that SANDAG already addresses so many targets with SB1, with our FAST program, and then also with our MAP program, MAP 21 program. For section 5B, I also want to highlight 5B had 4 parts to it. So not only is there just an audit recommendation for like 5, it was like 5A through 5F. And then 5A through 5F also had 3 or 4 components to it. And so for 5B 3, it's speaking specifically to local jurisdiction pavement condition. And there's been a lot of work on this, and you're going to hear a report by Richard after us talking about the annual local streets and roads report. So in your 2012 TransNet performance audit, there was a recommendation that SANDAG monitor local pavement conditions. Well, in 2015, 2016 timeframe, SANDAG had worked with ITALK and the subcommittees to come up with the narrative report that you guys receive every year. On top of that, SANDAG has also met with various vendors such as Streetlight, Replica, to see if there's any big data that measures pavement consistently across the jurisdictions. And additionally, staff have reached out to all the different engineering and planning departments within all the local jurisdictions to see how they monitor pavement conditions in their jurisdiction or how they collect it. And we believe that one other recommendation from the triennial, from the TPM framework from our auditor was to maybe copy MTC's model. MTC uses the Street Saver program, where they would be the ones responsible for going out and monitoring all the pavements and all the other jurisdictions. But it's very costly to do that as far as implementation, training, and then having to hire staff to also monitor this program. The upfront fees would be about $150,000 to $200,000 on top of having 2 staff to oversee that program. And at this point, there were decisions made previously that SANDAG didn't have the staffing or the resources to be able to implement the Street Saver program. And then the lastly was to provide regular performance monitoring reports. We believe we fulfilled this with the State of the Commute only because a lot of the data sources that are published through the State of the Commute, they're not available on a quarterly basis. A lot of the data sets, such as the PEMS data from Caltrans, such as the SWITR's data from the California Highway Patrol, most of these data sets are only available on an annual basis, and we believe the State of the Commute fulfills that. And so now I am going to bring this back to Susan.
Yes, so it's back to me. Audit recommendation number 7, and let me go ahead, click it. There we go. Number 7 and 7B also have to do with tracking project outputs and monitoring TransNet accomplishments over time. So in regards to the TransNet story map, the story map is currently being updated to improve the user experience. It's currently off the website right now, but staff is refreshing the project data behind the scenes, and the updated story map will go live once the new information is finalized. The TransNet dashboard, regarding the TransNet dashboard, in 2022, the dashboard was enhanced to include project details for all TransNet major corridor funded projects. Projects are listed by ordinance number and CIP number with a schedule, budget, and actual expenditure data updated as changes occur. And then in 2024, a matrix was added to the dashboard. It shows completed, in progress, and future remaining projects based on the major corridor expenditure plan and the latest approved regional plan scope. This provides the comprehensive picture of the major corridor program, which was the main goal of the TransNet audit recommendation. So in regards to the annual output and outcome reporting, like Grace was talking about, the local jurisdictions do submit the biennial narrative reports in Project Track. And that's our tool that we use for when the locals are submitting what they are programming to use their TransNet local money on. And so that's how they're planning to use their TransNet money for the next 2 years. So that's their forward-looking report. Then on an annual basis, they submit what they actually spent their money on. That's the local streets and roads report that's later on in the agenda. So that's how they actually spent their money and what the impacts were achieved. Project Track, our tool, is currently being upgraded to include additional performance monitoring data, allowing the jurisdictions to reconcile those planned outputs with the actual accomplishments. And that upgrade is expected to go live in early 2026. The key challenge that remains, though, is ensuring consistent data reporting across all jurisdictions. So if you look at that report later on in the agenda, you'll see that the metrics which are chosen by the local jurisdictions on how they're reporting is inconsistent across jurisdictions, and that remains our key challenge going forward. And so now I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
Okay, I'm here to talk about rule number 21, board policy number 31, rule 21, which relates to bike and ped accommodations. And there were three recommendations. And the first one is to use results from Rule 21 to review and make identified changes to the ordinance, definitions, and follow up on areas of non-compliance noted during the review. So SANDAG has spent a lot of time. There were 189 projects in the RTIP that SANDAG reviewed. Of those, 153 were compliant, and the remainder were determined to be either be uncompliant, just a handful of those, or we didn't receive enough information to determine the compliance level. And reasons for that would be that it would be pavement rehabilitation would be the project listed, or traffic signal upgrades. So it was difficult for staff to make a determination. The second one was work with locals to determine a method to demonstrate compliance with SANDAG Board Policy 31, Rule 21. Currently, local jurisdictions report and certify compliance with Rule 21 through the RTIP project entry process in Project Track. This includes a description, self-certification of the project that it meets the goals of Rule number 21, and it requires a GIS upload of points and spatial data. Essentially, this is what SANDAG staff use to determine compliance. We do not currently have a mechanism or capacity to do more monitoring or reporting of these projects beyond what's identified in Project Track. Finally, the last item is amend or establish a SANDAG board policy to require local jurisdictions to track and report on the number of bike and pedestrian facilities implemented using TransNet funds. So this actually is related to the other recommendation that you see in the line below, which is to continue to review and monitor the projects submitted, and then work with the local jurisdictions to consider adjustments to Board Policy 31, Rule 21. So we've been at this for a while, and SANDAG formed a subcommittee of the Mobility Working Group in 2023 that looked at what accommodations or changes to Rule 21 could we make, among other topics. The majority of the members, virtually all of the members of the working group, did not support making any changes to Rule 21 of Board Policy 31. So essentially, they all agreed that safety was the primary component, but there's not a single solution. So the recommendations that staff were making looked at updating Rule 21 with NACTO and AASHTO and FHWA guidelines. The different members of the TransNet subcommittee thought that there were a way each jurisdictions could do their own projects, and they shouldn't be ruled by guidelines specified in a change to Rule 21. So at this point, we're at kind of a standstill. We do not have a recommendation from that TransNet subcommittee to update Rule 21, and we are recommending that we go ahead and continue to monitor as is moving forward.
And then the remaining two items, one is number 13, which is to continue analyzing transit commute times. We thought we could address this. We've been working closely with MTS and NCTD. We are releasing a transit ridership dashboard in partnership with our transit operators. But we also know that Google and Waze also publishes commute times that show whether or not transit commute routes and services are faster. And so we think we've satisfied this, given we
publish in conjunction with MTS and NCTD the transit ridership. We also do the transit ridership on the State of the Commute dashboard. But again, given that big tech also does this with Google in ways we believe that that would probably be a better avenue given their resources and highly funded. And then for number 23, we also, again, think that the State of the Commute satisfies this, given that we publish this annually and it has a lot of the performance monitoring metrics on the annual State of the Commute. And so what we want to talk about with the ITALK committee and the chair today is we think the next steps would be to complete completion forms for the remaining TPA recommendations. We would complete these completion forms. We'd have the details in the background that shows everything that staff have tried to accomplish with the last remaining 9 TPA audit recommendations. And then we would seek your approval in formally closing this out as a next step.
That complete your presentation?
It does. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so now do we have clerk? Are there any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. We do not have any public comments.
Okay, so with that, I'll start with member comments. Vice Chair, any comments? Jacqueline? All right.
First, thank you for all of the information. It's obvious a lot of work has been done. So yes, I think that we can, I think we should move on to the completion forms and all the information you've provided. And whether you've completed them or not, the only thing I would say is please put up front, you know, we could address, I don't know, half of this, but in this way, but this other is ongoing or whatever it is, but just be upfront and really, I guess, clear about it. Sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle. Okay. Thanks.
Will do.
I think to add, and probably I'm you know, overstating things here, but as we move on and, you know, I think where you're going, Jacqueline, is also, you know, just put up front if you could do it or not do it, right? Pretty much. And that is our motto is we don't want to go and reinvent the wheel. We want to use the tools that are available and use them. You know, we have so many oversights on top of us and under us that it's just adding more layers. It's just not feasible to be able to accomplish the actual mission the agency's entrusted to do. Regarding some of the board policies, I think also in that token, we're going to have, let it be board policy X or Y. We're also going to have a deeper discussion with the board on, again, what's the role of the agency? If it's an oversight, or is it, you know, somebody that facilitates implementation? So we could dive into details of board policy XYZ, the buy program, the payment program, but I think we're going to have similar to the priority of projects, a higher level discussion of one, what can we do with the tools available in-house and out, and let it be metrics or whatever. And two, what is the role of the agency? And there are many competing factors and groups and interest groups that say, hey, I want this type of projects to be homogeneous and all over San Diego. And there's another part that says, I'm a city and independent. Why are you telling me how to do this? And then there's federal guidelines, state guidelines. So we also need to have that higher level, but we really appreciate, and we're trying to basically come and say, yeah, this is what is achievable right now and what's not achievable.
Right, and I wasn't here to put this list together, but I would assume that this committee does not want to reinvent the wheel. And if information exists, let's point to that information, you know, but to me, it just has to be easily accessible. And if we put something in a document, we just need to have documentation saying this is how we're addressing it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Thanks for putting this together. None of the ITALK members were there in 2018. So let's first of all put that in context. What I get from the audit is that really the intention of these recommendations was to create more transparency on behalf of SANDAG. Also to do more progress reporting. Obviously, maybe at that time, this wasn't available as far as all the progress reporting that you're doing now. It was also about accountability. You know, you're spending taxpayers' money, and of course, you know, ITALK wanted to make sure that that was happening, that you were reporting out, being transparent, and watching the money. A lot has happened since 2018. All the monitoring that Mario referred to is happening. I don't think many of those things were in place before. So when you look at that and all the context here, it makes sense that we can let go of some of these things. I do want to point out that except for one, all of these items were either high priority or critical. So it was important at the time to make sure these were implemented. So I think it's important for you in your completion report, explain exactly, like you said, why, just explain here why you are recommending for this item to be closed. Identify other tools or resources that are in place that were not in place at the time that could almost, or maybe either all the way or just partially, I guess, replace this recommendation. It meets the intent of what it was supposed to be. Also, if any other recommendations later kind of relate to that and those made you be able to implement and make this happen, again, meeting the intent, let's relate to it. You know, I'm sure some of these audit recommendations are somewhat redundant or maybe, you know, the opposite of each other. Maybe they clash. So just make sure that that information is listed in your completion report. Then we can go ahead, vote on it and close this out once and for all. So thank you for all your effort in trying to accomplish this. I know this particular audit was a lot, and I know we've talked about these performance measures for years and years now. So it'd be nice to close it out. So.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Yes, we will take all of your suggestions and recommendations and ensure that everything is detailed document and that everything is clear up front when you guys approve it.
So, and my comments are, I do agree that we do have a very robust internal and external checks and balances on all these TPAs. And so I'm comfortable with the forms having the backup and the justification of why SANDAG feels that they're in a position to close out items. And I do appreciate that when items are still in progress, that you're still working on those, that we get an update on those, on why things have not been able to close out. And as we know, with technology and everything that moves on, a recommendation made a year or 2 or 3 years ago, all of a sudden it's overcome by the technology and we find a better way to reinvent the wheel again. So I'm comfortable with that part of it. I do have some comment on each of the following three on item 3, 12, and 13. 3 is the one that relates to the plan of finance. So when SANDAG looks at the ability to issue debt and the ability to complete projects, and you reach a certain, I guess, limit of amount of debt that you can issue, that then ultimately goes into the next regional transportation plan, revenue constrained limits, right? That you're saying, look, this is what our new revenue constrained scenario is going to be at, and you apply that number so that everybody knows in the region, look, this is where as far as we can go with the foreseeable revenue sources that we're going to get locally, regional, state, and federal. Is that correct?
That's right. So we're required to do a revenue constrained financial plan that supports the regional plan. And when we are looking at our TransNet revenue, we are estimating what the TransNet revenue is from this point out till 2048. And that is definitely a revenue constrained assumption that we get from our economists based on their recommendations of growth rates and other factors.
And so that's what's right now, then that's already in the draft RTP that's out right now for public.
That's
comment.
correct.
Okay, thank you. Next one, item 12, the board policy 31, rule 21. That one has been a conundrum for everybody to kind of deal with. But I think maybe the pushback on this one falls more to the local agencies. I think SANDAG's at the point where we have said this is what's required, and the local agencies on an annual basis should be doing a GASB 21 report with their finance department saying, this is the infrastructure we built this year, all the widgets that we completed with the funding sources, and here's what we did maintenance wise. And I used to go through that exercise annually with our finance department, and we would always update our databases to show this is how many bike lanes we added, lane miles of streets that paved or built, sidewalks, square feet. So there's a process there that I think already exists at the local level. And so I think that it's a SANDAG at this point. I don't know that there's anything more you're going to do, because this, with the 18 agencies and the transit agencies, it's hurting cats. And so I think we're at a point where we can move on with that one. On item 13, I agree with the big tech issue on there, that there's other ways out there that the public is getting their information on their travel times. And so I think that maybe, SANDAG just should look at it and say, look, we can provide some information, but every day there's somebody else out, or a new platform out there that, and the public realizes right away that there's other ways to get their information. So I think it's just, yes, we can provide some information, but we don't intend to imply that we have all the information all the time. So I think, yes, there's a way for you to say something to that effect on the form and acknowledge that on the website or on other forms that you use, or that the public reaches out to SANDAG, that there are ways to get that information that they need. So those are all my comments. If there's no other comments, then I think at this point we're ready to entertain a motion. And on the last slide, well, it's discussion or possible action. Well, the action.
Yeah, you can take an action if you want to go ahead and say, we
Yes.
agree with this recommendation, staff will come back. Yes, correct.
Right. So right now, then what staff is seeking is ITOC's concurrence in closing out the 2018 recommendations.
So we will basically wait till the reports come back, the completion reports come back, and we'll vote at that time.
We would really like you to consider closing them, and we will come back with the appropriate write-ups that you're asking.
The forms.
But all the forms and everything, but it's becoming a very circular situation with this, as well as other audits that we're having.
All right. So yeah, we need a more formal direction. So
Well, I guess if we wait, we would like to see the reports to make sure they're completed. You explained it, but it'd be nice to see it in writing. So
Yeah,
why
so we're
can't we
just-
vote in October?
Well, yes, it'll come back to you with the detailed, with the closeout forms, with the formal approval closeout forms. But we're just hoping for you guys to take action today that you agree with concluding the 2018.
I see.
That way that we got your verbal approval, and then we can now work on the details, and you guys can close them out when Vanessa comes back, I believe in October.
okay.
Is it October, Vanessa?
Oh, okay.
All right.
Okay, that makes sense.
So
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve, to give staff the authorization to proceed with closing out the 2018 TPA recommendations.
A second.
All right. So with that, then the clerk call for the vote.
Thank you. For biology environmental is absent. For CEO private sector, Sunny House.
Approved.
For contractor construction, Jacqueline Appleton Dean.
Yes, recommend.
For finance and budgeting, Marion Babaki.
Yes.
For licensed civil traffic engineer, Chair Rivera.
Yes.
Licensed engineer is currently vacant and real estate right-of-way acquisition is absent. So that motion does pass unanimously with those members present.
All right, thank you very much. Great discussion. So now we'll move on to item number 6, the FY 2024 Transit Local Streets and Road Program Annual Status Report. Richard Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, iTalk members. So this is the last item on today's agenda, and it is sort of related to the last item. This item is for the fiscal year 2024 TransNet Local Streets and Roads Program Status Report. And I'll start right now by giving a brief overview, kind of refreshing on a little bit of what was discussed in the last item. As was mentioned in the previous item, there were recommendations in the fiscal year 2012 triennial performance audit that proposed that SANDAG take a greater role in monitoring and reporting the performance of the local streets and roads program. In 2013, SANDAG staff, in collaboration with, I believe, the County Transportation Advisory Committee and Mobility Working Group members, developed an annual reporting process as well as a survey template that highlights the TransNet projects and programs by jurisdiction to address the performance audit recommendations. In 2013, the reporting process began after the template was developed, and the collection effort for the fiscal year 2024 report was kicked off at the November 2024 Mobility Working Group meeting, with survey collection concluding in spring of 2025. The survey in Excel format was sent to all 19 of the jurisdictions, including the 18 cities and the County of San Diego. The fiscal year 2024 survey is made up of 4 main sections, and you can find a blank example of the survey in your agenda packet starting on page 176. We first asked the jurisdictions to provide contact information, and then section 1 asked for projects completed in fiscal year 24, which was July 2023 through June 2024. Section 2 asked for projects scheduled for completion in fiscal year 25, covering July 2024 through June of 2025. Section 3 asked for any concerns and or challenges related to spending down local street and road balances that agencies experienced. And then section 4 asked for any other comments or notes that they wanted to provide. Jurisdictions were also able to submit links and photos if they had them available. Now this slide here shows 2 graphics. One on the left is for the project categories that were listed in or reported on in section 1. And as you can see, infrastructure was the most significantly reported on, with maintenance coming in at second. And for project types in section 1, roadway was the most significantly reported on type of project. For section 2, the projects scheduled for completion in fiscal year 25, infrastructure and maintenance were also respectively the most significantly reported on and second most significantly reported on categories of projects, with roadway also being the most significant project type scheduled for completion in fiscal year 2025. Concerns and challenges shared by the jurisdictions seem to really be related primarily to staffing, including turnover, and then also that resulting in a loss of institutional knowledge with regard to the TransNet program. Also, significant time taken for current staff to learn the TransNet program, staffing capacity issues, issues with contractors slowing progress. It was also briefly mentioned in the last item that there are inconsistencies across the agencies with respect to data collection and presentation. Also in regard to resources, higher construction costs and bids likely to the result of inflation or due to lack of bidding contractors seem to be a theme as well. Continued rise in labor and material costs and uncertainty surrounding how the economy will impact the projects planned for completion in fiscal year 25. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Clerk, are there any public comments on item number 6?
We do not have any public comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have any member comments?
No.
No, Vice Chair, go ahead.
Thanks for the report, Richard. It's good to know what the jurisdictions, the local jurisdictions are doing. So this is really good information. I'm wondering, I know in the past, we've had some jurisdictions not meeting requirements or having difficulty, again, because of new staffing and things like that. Now, when board members come on, you guys do orientation. Is it possible if maybe once a year, or maybe you're already doing this, just once a year, have a TransNet training or update just in case there are new staff? Because there's a lot of turnover.
We do try to address that. As you know, we onboard new iTalk members with a kind of iTalk specific presentation. We have had internal discussions on how to improve our process of onboarding board members. And also we're in the works trying to figure out how we can schedule or set up some trainings for local staff members. That seems to be kind of a recurring thing that we deal with, especially whenever we do our 2-year RTIP update, which is coming up fairly soon here. So that will be another opportunity there to help try to, educate folks on how to enter projects, administer their TransNet, draw it down.
I think that'd be great.
And if I may, to piggyback on Rich, we do meet with them every 2 years when we do our tip update. So we try to incorporate everybody. Richards have been doing a great job he does training through videos that we post on our website. So that way if new staff come on, they can access those videos at any time.
Okay.
And then he does work very closely with the locals that if we do new staff, he will take time. Like if they normally have lots of questions. So we'll work with them on those.
Awesome. Thank you for doing that.
Any other members, comments?
Just a curiosity question. There was all these concerns and challenges. What's rising to the top, do you think? Do you have a sense for that?
I honestly, I tried to prioritize or list them in the order that of the frequency that I saw in the submissions. You can see all the various pages that reflect all the submissions from the jurisdictions. I got the sense that the staffing, and from, like Michelle mentioned, I do work pretty closely with a lot of these contacts at these jurisdictions. And that's usually what they tend to deal with more often than the others. Not to say that they don't deal with any of the other issues, but a lot of them, I would say out of the 19, the cities, the 18 cities and the county, I would say probably 11 or more have within the past year or so dealt with staffing issues in some way, whether it's capacity, turnover, people moving between departments. It's kind of funny. A lot of people will move from local agency to local agency as well. So you'll end up, they'll be working in a different role maybe, but they might still be sort of linked to the RTIP, because this does sort of link to the RTIP, that I bring. So yeah, I definitely would say staffing is probably for one reason or another, the biggest issue.
Yeah, I just just knowing people in the industry, that seems to be, it's a little bit of musical chairs out there. I was just wondering, because it seems like cost is such a big thing, and the rising costs, and what we could build, if a project takes 5 years, what we could build 5 years ago is a lot different than what we could build today. So it seems like that would be affecting the sizes of projects. If I could build a mile 5 years ago, now I could build half a mile or whatever. So I was just wondering, but that's interesting.
Yeah, I can see that for certain jurisdictions would be more of an issue than staffing might be, the costs becoming more significant. But again, I tried to list them in order of like the frequency that they were reported.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think where I've seen this is, yes, on the staffing, that remember, a lot of the local agencies are very small agencies already to begin with. And so they really feel the hurt when you have vacancies. And so I understand where that's coming from. But when you look at attachment 1 on page 97 of 169, Oceanside, that's their concerns and challenges. That one hit the nail on the head. Because once you've resolved your staffing issue and you try to get your project out to get built, they wrote, and I'll quote, "The continued rise in labor and material costs has posed a significant challenge to effectively spending down funds as initially planned. In response, staff had worked diligently to pool resources and combine project efforts, seeking to achieve economies of scale where possible. However, there is still uncertainty surrounding how the economy will impact the planned projects for 2025. Regulatory hurdles continue to complicate project timelines and budgets, with extended review times from outside agencies often stretching approval processes for months, further delaying planned design schedules. In construction, contractors have become increasingly reluctant to bid on projects burdened with complex regulatory requirements, resulting in fewer bids and in many cases unsuccessful ones, causing staff to publish a bid multiple times. This combination of rising costs, regulatory delays, and contractor hesitance significantly strains the execution of planned initiatives. However, staff is making concerted efforts to forecast project budgets and timelines realistically, considering the challenges discussed to ensure project timelines are met and projects stay within budget." So that's once they get staffed up. So it's really hard out there. And, so I applaud all the local agencies for everything that you're doing, and SANDAG staff, everybody's doing their best they can. But it's a different world that we're in over this last couple of years. And so I think that's the uncertainty that we have. And, but I think we're here to work with the local agencies to make sure that things are done. But like I always used to tell my staff, if you first sign of issues coming up, raise your hand, because we're here to help. And so I think that's really the message we need to put out there, that we're all in this together and that we really need to get these projects done that we've been working on for a long time. So with that, this item's informational only. Any last minute comments before we close it out?
Not on this one.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
have something to say before you.
Okay, so I think with that, then, Richard, thank you very much for your presentation. So with that, I think that concludes our agenda.
I wanted to
Down
say
to-
something about the previous item, and not that, just that it really gave me a lot of thought about revisiting, through the audit, some of the goals. And I'm really glad for that, because sometimes we can get caught up in just going and doing it over and over again without standing back and saying, is this making any sense? And I think this was really good about standing back and looking at it and saying, what are we getting the bang for the buck of all this effort and going at it again and again. And I'm really glad to see that, and hopefully we can do a lot more of this. So just standing back and looking and saying, is this effort, is this work, does it make any sense? Just because it was mandated.
Yeah.
At what point do we stop and look? So good job on that one.
Well, thank you, everybody. I think if there's no further comments, then I'll say we're adjourned at 11:38 a.m. Thank you, everybody.